Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Illinois Valley Community College's edition of the Living Room Stage and Gallery live event. You may have noticed, since you're watching us now, that we have switched our format from our IVCC Fine Arts Facebook page to YouTube. So we're streaming live on YouTube. We want to welcome everybody, and you can share these videos. They're all our former interviews are posted here as well. So if you want to revisit some of the great people I've talked to, our goal with this, as we're on the world's longest intermission from performing, is to keep the arts alive in any way that we can. And right now, online seems to be the way to do that, even though we're in phase 4. It's going to be a while before we're all back in a theater again or a gallery or anything like that. So we're keeping you posted on what's going on with the arts, performing, visual, historical, concerts, you name it. We're trying to keep you posted on what there is to do and what people are planning on doing. And some of our former guests are currently on Broadway. Well, they're not currently on Broadway, but we're. And next week I got a great guest. I have Steve Kinsella, who is actually an alumni of IVCC, and he is the executive director of a theater company in California. And he's going to be on with us, telling us how his paths took him out there to form the Brentwood, California Broadway Theater Company. And I think you're going to find it really interesting. He and I have chatted over the years now and then. He's like, I saw you did Disaster at the college. How did that go? What kind of show is it? So I'm really looking forward to speaking with Steve next week, since I have not seen him literally for decades. Since I went one way, he went another, and I'm back here and he's still in California. So, all right, now we've been talking about how it's, we're in phase 4 and it's difficult to interpret those rules. We all want to do what's absolutely safe. So therefore, we probably, won't be seeing a show anytime in the near future. Broadway announced that they're not opening now until February of 2021. And at the college, obviously, we have 600 seats. We could socially distance the audience, but we don't know how to socially distance a cast. And of course, there's all the common areas and things like that. So we're just on hold till next spring, when hopefully things have taken a turnaround. However, my next guest has figured out a spectacular way to keep audiences safe, outside, and entertained. And I think you'll find her extremely interesting. You may have driven by the Hegeler Karras mansion here in LaSalle, Illinois. And she is the executive director of the mansion. Please welcome to our living room stage and gallery. This is Cindy Waddick, the executive director. Cindy, there you
I
are.
I
How
made
are
it.
you this? You did. And how are you this evening?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Good, good. You had beautiful weather Friday for your concert.
It couldn't have been better. There's a
Yeah,
nice breeze, a beautiful lawn.
yep. The concerts we're talking about is the concert series that the Hegeler Karras Mansion is doing on their beautiful big lawn, which is something that's been going on for years. This year is going on a little different. We're going to tell you about that in a little bit. But Cindy, the Hegeler Karras Mansion, a lot of people drive by it. A lot of people have, I mean, hundreds, thousands of people have been in it. But every so often, I'm surprised I run into somebody who has not been in it. So I want you to tell us a little bit about its history, and we got some pictures to show too. But you've been there how long now? 2 years?
Um, in September, I'll be there 2 years.
Okay, good. And you've done great things for the mansion. This I know for a fact. So give us a brief background on what guests could expect to see.
Well, it's I almost said a typical Victorian home, and it is typically Victorian to a certain extent. There's little intricacies about it that you wouldn't find in a Victorian home that Edward Hegeler, who built it, wanted done certain ways. But it's a 57-room mansion.
Wow.
It was built in 1874, and between 1874 and 1876, and that makes me laugh because I think of nowadays when people try to build like a 3-bedroom ranch.
Right.
It takes at least a year just for the cupboards to get in and get matched. And back in 1874, they built the mansion with 200 workers, many of whom came from Germany. within 2 years, it's just amazing to me.
That is remarkable.
Yeah,
And
these are the iconic horseshoe stairs. Parts of them are not there right now because of safety reasons. As soon as we can raise $2 million, we can replace the stairs and the porch, but that's not going to happen next week, that's for sure.
Do you want me to write you a check? We can do that.
Yeah, we can put you on installment any way that works for you, Don.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to cash it, but I can write the check, sure.
But when people came to visit, they would come up these stairs to those front doors there, and then they would be admitted. The staff would answer the doors, and they'd be admitted into the reception room, which is just to the right when you go in, and ask for whoever they're there to see, give their little calling card, and somebody would come down and meet them. And when people come for tours, they get to see really what Victorian life was like. A lot of the mansion is still the way it was 140 some years ago. So the painting, the decorating, the design that somebody painted on the ceiling 144 years, that is still there. It hasn't changed at all. It hasn't been updated. So they get to see the real thing.
IVCC has some ties to the mansion too. Oh, well, before we tell that, tell us about this room here. This is a recent redo, right?
This is a recent, we've just finished this in November of last year. And I told you when you came up the steps, you went into the reception room. The reception room is just across the hall from this room. This is the parlor. And when gentlemen would come into the mansion to visit, they'd go into the reception room, and that's as far as they got. When the ladies came to visit, they got ushered over here to the parlor, and they had their tea and their little sweet cakes and things like that, and got to visit for 15, 20, 30 minutes. It wasn't long visits, and they weren't in-depth discussions by any means. It was just nice, chatty, visiting.
Right.
But you can see the floor around the edge there in front of the fireplace. In this room, there's at least 7 or 8 different types of wood, and the floor is all inlaid parquet. The whole main floor living area is inlaid parquet. And when you think of the amount of time it took to inlay each and every little piece in there, it's amazing. And you can see along the top above the mirror there, the decorations, the hand painted, that's all hand painted. And years ago, they found a piece of paper, wallpaper, in a book up in the attic. And between looking at pictures and a variety of information, they found out it was a piece of the original wallpaper for this parlor. Wow. And we found somebody out in the East Coast that could replicate it for us. And so the wallpaper that you see on the walls here is identical to the original thing. So this is what the room would look like when the family would take you in there to visit. That little record player over there in the corner, you can see the top up, that was from the 1893 World's Fair. And I don't know if you can see it really well. On the right side, you can see 3 little kind of cherubs standing on top of each other. That's carved out of a single piece of Japanese balsam wood. It's all hand carved.
The artwork throughout that whole place and the statues and things like that are just completely stunning. It's amazing. And then there's a story, of course, behind all of them.
Right. This is the back side of the parlor. You'd be standing in front of the fireplace now, looking back, and you get a really good picture of the floor there. You can see the ceiling and all that's all hand painting up there. That's what amazes me about this taking 2 years. And way back in the back, you see that little brown chair back there. Right. That is from the 1600s. And there was a Japanese monk who, well, it's not a monk like we identify with today, but he was traveling and they wanted a foldable chair that they could take and he would have access to as he traveled. And so that's the chair that they made, again, in 1600. And it's in our parlor. And wow. The interesting thing about this house is when you go to visit a historical home or a museum, if you get 5-10% original items, it's good. You get a lot of, this is of the time kind of pieces. This is what
Right.
it would have been like in the time. And the beauty of the Hegeler Karras mansion is that almost 85% of everything in that mansion is original. I mean, when we
Wow.
say don't touch that chair because it's 144 years old and we don't want you to touch the chair.
Understandably, I'm 144. I don't like people touching me.
Exactly.
I started to say IVCC had a connection to that house. We have done children's theater in the Grand Hall. There are several productions there, original productions. And years and years ago, we did the Victorian Christmas. I think that might have been the title of it, the Victorian Christmas. And we had a huge cast in that. And I researched and we did very period dances, which were pretty subdued, of course. And I believe Dr. Keatster wrote a storyline about an engagement party or something like that happening on Christmas. But we had a ball. And out of that group, I think you got several student volunteers. That was a while ago, to do tours and things because everybody was just fascinated with that house completely. And then I was told years later that the dancing caused some plaster to fall on the bottom floor. So
Yeah,
we weren't
we've
invited
cut back on dancing right now.
Yeah, understandably so. Chad has something else for, oh, the dining room.
Yeah, this is my favorite room in the house. This is the dining room. And that table you see there is the original table. And it has all its leaves in, which is pretty much the way it is there now. It will seat 22 people.
Wow.
And that's what like Blau Karras, who's the great grandson of Edward Hegeler, he tells stories of when he was a child and they would come to the house for Thanksgiving or holidays, and 22 people would be around this table, and you know, it's fun to listen to the stories of the family.
Oh yeah.
Like this was just grandma's house when you think about it. This really shows the marquetry, they call it. See the little brown squares along the edge of the table?
Yeah.
That goes around the whole table. Those are, again, inlaid little pieces of wood. And that was all done on site. And around the whole room, there's a wallboard. And on top of the wallboard, there's a strip of decoration wood, and it matches this little marquetry here on the table. So they really tied everything together.
Yeah, I've been in there. I've seen that. I forgot to mention, if you're watching us and you have a comment or a question for Cindy, make sure you put it in the comments here, and we'll be happy to pass it on as we're going along. I know a lot of people have a strong connection to the mansion. You've got a strong volunteer force, and people are just fascinated. I know I, for one, I grew up around here, and way back when, who was I talking about this with on one of these interviews? Could have been, oh, it was Alice, who also is one of your volunteers,
Yeah.
where we would be out trick-or-treating, and that was always the last stop, and we would dare each other to go up and ring the doorbell because it was all overgrown and there were all kinds of, you know, rumors and stories, which of course you desperately believe when you're a kid. So you know, a lot of people went by it and we're curious as to what's inside. So,
well,
all right,
along with that Halloween story, when Alvin Karras, he was Mary Karras's son. He was born in the mansion. He lived there for 102 years and just passed away in 2004. And one of our current volunteers he tells a story of when he was in junior high, 7th grade, and his friends dared him to go up and ring the doorbell because it was this big haunted house, theoretically. Right. And he did, and Alvin invited him in. And when he got invited in, his friends thought they'd never see him alive again. But he had a nice little visit with Alvin, and Alvin asked him if he'd come back when he had time because he knew it was Halloween and he didn't want to spend time there that night. So our volunteer went back, got to be very good friends with Alvin, played chess with him, and when he'd go away to college, he'd come back and visit with Alvin. So So
Wow.
some people did ring the doorbell at Halloween. It turned out really well.
I think I always ran before anybody answered. It was too scary. Um, so, the stories of the family, you were so fortunate to have him around until very recently to fill in a lot of blanks, because having that living history, they,
Exactly.
that that was a remarkable tool for you folks to. And is it true? I think it is. I was told this by Tricia, I think, that um, he preferred sleeping on the straw-filled mattress, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right up until he was 102.
102. Yeah, he
Wow.
died just a few days before his 103rd birthday.
Wow.
And he did this cool thing up in one of the bedrooms. Actually, it was Camilla's bedroom, but he would go across the hall every day. And I don't know what his setup was, but he had something rigged up that put the sunlight in a certain spot each day. And he would put a piece of masking tape on that spot. And you can see where it says October 24th, 1950, October 21st, or not 1950, 2004,
Right.
and October 13th, 2004. And you can see all the little pieces of tape along that floor. And it does one of those Alemana, the kind of lazy eight
Oh, sure.
design. And that's on the bedroom floor up there. He traced the sun's rotation, and there's a lazy eight on the floor and masking tape
Wow.
upstairs.
I had never heard that. That's incredible. That when I think of him sleeping on a straw mattress, and when I think of all of us mattress shopping now, that that boggles my mind. It's
Yeah.
like he preferred the old rules. So let's say somebody wants to tour this mansion. Now, I know used to be you could show up and wait at the back door and then be let in, and you took groups. But since the pandemic, you've changed those rules, but tours are still available, right? Tell us about those.
We just opened up for tours July 1st.
Mhm.
And we have three kinds of tours. We have what we call our general tour, and that's about a 1 hour tour, and that'll take you through the ground floor and the first floor main living areas. So you see
Mhm.
these pictures of the rooms that we just saw a few minutes ago.
Right.
We also have made up a half house tour, and that covers the main floor, the ground floor, and the attic. And because the attic, these people never threw anything away.
I know, I've seen
And
it.
if you've been in the attic,
I
and my
have.
second favorite room is the trunk room, because they've
Mm.
traveled so much with so many people. We have this whole room full of just trunks. And so that's part of the half tour. And then we have the whole house tour, which literally you can go from the cupola on the top of the building. Oh, there you go. The cupola
Okay.
on the top, and there's an upper attic. We don't really go into the upper attic, but you go into the attic, then you come down to the bedroom floors, which is the third level down, and then the main floor, and then the ground floor you see there, and then the basement. So you see everything from the cupola down to the boiler room.
Right.
And there's a
It's
wide
astounding.
expanse of places to explore.
Yep. And the cupola is very fun because, you know, I'm going back now years and years ago again, but everybody wondered what was up there. And of course, rumors and things like that. And there's always a mysterious light in the cupola and things like that. But it's bigger than it looks from the outside, the cupola, because, it's so high up. But the attic fascinated me. But that trunk room that Cindy was talking about, you've got to see this. I do have a question. Do you allow photographs
We
when
do.
people are into? Okay,
We do.
if you're a
The
photographer, then
the only thing we make people promise when they take photographs is that they put it on our Facebook page, and on their Facebook page is to spread the word so more people will come and visit.
well, good,
So,
because that
and we
trunk
try
room.
not to have them use flash just because of light is
Well, sure,
detrimental.
sure.
But the one thing that's changed because of the virus is that people can't just drive up and knock on the door, ring the bell, and come on in anymore. So we have a list of those three kinds of tours on our website, and When people come to our door, the first thing that happens is they get their temperature taken. Then they are asked some health questions, and then they are put over into moved to the waiting area where we have chairs spread out 6 feet.
Okay.
They have to wear a mask when they're in the building. Staff, volunteers, anybody in the building always has a mask on. And then what we've done is gone through the whole building, and we've put squares down on the floor so that when people get into a room, say the reception room or the parlor, we have space that they can spread out in space. They're not on top of each other, just in passing in hallways sometimes that we don't have enough space, but we really have in almost every room enough space for people to spread out. They're not on top of each other, and we're that's going to help with safety.
It's very well thought out. Yeah. And you have an elevator if stairs are a problem.
We have a ramp, handicap ramp coming up to the back door. You have to come into the back, and then there is an elevator, so it's all handicap accessible.
Right. And it's a fascinating tour. I will vouch for it. I've done it many times. I've done the whole house tour. We happen to know one of your tour guides there pretty well, Tricia. Well, she's not just a tour guide. She's the head of your volunteers and the head of tours, right?
Correct.
And we have seen an awful lot of very remarkable things. And I started to say about that trunk room, I've always been interested in photography. Not that I've ever pursued it, but I was in that room, and you can't imagine this. The old steamer trunks, huge steamer trunks, all in the center of the room, stacked up almost all the way to the ceiling. And it's fascinating. I mean, it's like there's a photo up there that you do not, it looks like a movie set. So much of it looks like a movie set. And the attic you were talking about where they don't throw anything away. I meant to ask, down in the parlor, you pointed out the phonograph over there. That was not the wax tube one, was it?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, because
it's got a plate on it.
Okay, because upstairs someplace they have, actually, it's the wax cylinder, and it was from the World's Fair or something that they got that. I don't remember the background, but they actually could record people talking and play it back for a novelty. Some of that stuff.
It's amazing what's in that house. It's just it's amazing. There's something new every day.
You just can't imagine. And a good friend of ours who's also the historian of the IVCC theater department has been cataloging for you, and that's Alice Scott. So she's been going through, I have no idea how many books and newspaper clippings.
Well, what we have been told and figured out, and this, that, and the other thing, is that there was almost 250,000 books in the family's collection. And and a large number of those are first editions, obviously. And a large portion was sent down to Southern Illinois University for preservation and also research. And Alice comes in, and the first rule is don't touch anything in Alice's room, because she's got her books laid out the way she wants them, and we just don't touch anything. And then her goal, I think, is to try to catalog 5,000 books a year. And my understanding is we still have about 80,000 books in the building. So she's going to be there for a while, I'm thinking.
She is. That's a commitment. As an aside here, we're going to talk about some of your presentations later. Now, I know you've done murder mysteries that were audience involvement. We went to see Alice, who gives a wonderful presentation on a lot of the interesting books that she found. We were there because downstairs in the mansion, there's the hallway that was to the publishing company. The name escapes me. Open Court Publishing, right? And their offices are down there in the basement, or what were their offices, and that's where you do some of the presentations. And Alice had a slideshow of some of the amazing things that she found. I wish I could remember, but she's really a captivating speaker. I've known her for well, we went to IVCC together. That's when we met. So I've known her for decades and decades and decades. And it was so fun
Yeah,
to see her do that.
she found,
Oh,
speaking
okay.
of Alice.
Speaking of Alice, I hope she's watching or does watch this later. This is Alice and me in a bathtub at the Hegeler Karras mansion. And this was probably 1 a.m. One night. And it's not that we broke in to to do anything. We were invited because you have a plant and it blooms once a year. And Cindy, you tell us about it, but we just threw this in because it was actually a good angle to get a picture of the bloom. But you have a night blooming cereus. Is that what it's called?
It's Cereus, a Cereus plant, and
Mhm.
it's actually a desert plant. But we have two of them. We have one that's 140 years old, and then we have a youngster. The youngster's only 90 years old. And what happened was someone had got a cut off of the original plant, took it, and it got too big for their home, so they donated it back. So we have these two Cereus plants upstairs, and it literally does bloom once a year. I started in September, my first year, and shortly after, a couple weeks after, I couldn't figure out what was going on in the hallway. And I was working late, and there's all these people started congregating outside of my office door. And I went out, and they have wine and cheese, and they're setting up chairs, and they have a watch party for the Cereus plant, because when it blooms, it's quite a spectacle.
Right.
So there's one of the blooms. It comes out. If you see that little bloom, see right to the top, to the right, that little brown stringy thing.
Uh-huh.
That's a bud. And what happens is that thing starts opening up and opening up and opening up. And it does that for about 3 hours. So it takes a long time. And then once it's fully open, you see the flower there in the middle. And they're just gorgeous, and they smell like vanilla. It just fills up the whole floor. Just smells so good. And then
it's hard. Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's hard to tell from this picture. But the blooms are huge. You can't really see it in this picture.
They're like a small dinner plate size. And then they start going back together again for another 3 hours. So at the end, you just have this little kind of wilted, like that bud, but just kind of wilted hanging down, and that's it. And you wait again for the next year. So we have a volunteer who's our plant whisperer, and he takes great care of these things. And 1 year, both of them bloomed. Last year, one of them bloomed. So we can't. Well,
I think that picture that I put up there of Alice and me, that was probably 2 years ago. I think that was like 2018. And I think there were two of them opening that night. Now years and years ago, I'm trying to think, was it Trisha or it could have been Trisha that told us about when the family lived there, that was a huge event, that there was a greenhouse there on the grounds, and they had two gardeners from Asia or something like that knew these plants inside and out. And there were a lot of these plants in the greenhouse, and then every year they would bring them outside, put them around the house, and they would have a string quartet, and the summer kitchen would be cooking, and all of their friends would come down from Chicago, which wasn't like jumping in the car then, it was a journey, and it was a big gala event on the night that these flowers bloom, because these particular gardeners pretty much, they were the plant whisperers back then. But I thought, wow, what a time that people would come from miles and miles to watch plants bloom. But it sounds like a pretty cool party.
It's pretty amazing. And actually our volunteer plant whisperer does cuttings now, and we cut them and plant the cuttings and give them about 8-10 weeks to get a good root system on them, and then we're selling them in our gift shop. So yeah. So
have you seen the musical Little Shop of Horrors? I don't.
The Little Shop in the Big House.
Yeah, the Little Shop in the Big House. They always remind me when they're opening up of something Morticia Adams would have, but prettier. It's like she would snip, those buds off. Getting back to the tours, I forgot to mention when Cindy was talking about the tours, you can go to their website to make your reservations and pay and everything right up front. And that website is heglercarus.org. And remember, Hegeler is HEGLERCARUS.org.
There's an E between every consonant, so.
Right, easy way to remember it.
Yeah.
But,
and we're doing that. We have to we only allow 6 people on a tour, again, for spacing and safety. So that's why people have to pre-register and prepay.
And the cost of a tour is?
It depends on which one. If you want a general one, for adults, it's $15 or $5 for students. And we have senior prices and veteran prices. And then a half house is $50 and the whole house is $100. The half house takes about 2 hours, and the whole house is about 3.5 to 4 hours. So you're in for a trek. And we're trying right now. We've never done whole house tours in the summertime because we have concerts on Friday night. And because we had so many months of downtime, we're trying whole house tours now. We're starting them at 9 o'clock in the morning before the attic gets a chance to heat up too much. So they start in the attic, and then we can do that, and then we come down a floor where it's a lot cooler. So
yeah, it is toasty up there, it's toasty in the house period in the summer sometimes, but you do have
we have air conditioning, portable.
Yep, portable air conditioning, which does the trick on the lower floors. But yeah, good idea starting on top. I mentioned Alice doing her presentation, but that's not all that you've done over the years. You've done the Victorian Christmas vignettes or something like that, and your murder mysteries. So the Hegeler Karras House has actually become a center for arts and entertainment as well. You've had string quartets there, I believe.
Right. We have string quartets come in. We have woodwinds. We have violin. Sue Gilleo comes in with her violin group. And we have a volunteer who does the women of the mansion and talks about Hegeler Karras, or Camilla Hegeler and Mary Karras, and what amazing women that they were. I wanted to do something about Mary Karras as a woman behaving badly, but then that took on all the wrong connotations because so we kind of shelved that idea. But she did. She did everything women weren't supposed to do. She ran this 2 large companies before she could even vote, and she put herself, went through college. They wouldn't give her a degree or a diploma in University of Freiburg when she got her mining degree because she was a woman. She was the first woman to get a mining degree from Michigan. So I mean, she was always out there pushing the envelope as far as being a woman. And actually, I think later on you'll see a picture of our gift shop, and there's a picture of a book that they wrote about Mary Karras, which is really cool.
Let's put that gift shop picture up there, Chad. I should have mentioned Chad, who does your website and all that. I always mention Chad, and I forgot him tonight. He's our guy in the booth running our show tonight. So, Chad, if you have that picture of the gift shop, of course he does, right there. There it is.
There she is. And there's right down the front, there's Mary Karras, Independence of Thought, I think is the name of the book. And it really does, it's a short read. It's like an afternoon that you can sit down and just kind of absorb her. But she was an amazing woman. Southern Illinois University made up some posters. There's one behind on the table there standing up about her with some pictures. We also have one of Paul Karras, her husband, who was open court editor and a prolific writer, and then also Edward Hegeler, who built the mansion and started open court. Some of these items that you see here in the picture, we now have for sale online. So again, at heglercarus.org, there's an online shop. You can get Mary's book there. I think we have hats and some totes and some t-shirts and the I was there kind of things that people like. And then we also have a book, it's called The Patina of Time, and it's a great collection of pictures with a little bit of the story of all different aspects of the mansion. And so that's for sale online too.
I have seen that one. That has the close-ups of some of the woodworking and really detailed stuff. So if you enjoy local history that was pretty mind-blowing, you need to flip through those books. Better yet, you need to order them online at hegelerkarras.org. And some of the other events you've had, I know over the years, we saw Tricia Kelly, who has worked with us at IVCC doing storytelling and things like that. I saw her do Lizzie Borden there. Yes. She does historical characters, a very interesting presentation. And she and Chad did was that just last October, a War of the Worlds?
Orson Welles, yes.
Orson Welles, yeah. Oh, I forgot, yeah. Trisha discovered Orson Welles and
and the rest is history.
And the rest is history. I know. But anyway, so those you still got to figure out how to do those, or if you can do those. You're kind of like us in that regard, because most of those are the cold weather activities that happen inside.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what's going on every Friday night at the mansion, and this is what everybody needs to know about. These folks have it all figured out on how you can go enjoy music, have a glass of wine or whatever, sit on the lawn. Cindy, take it. Every Friday night, what happens at the mansion?
Well, the first thing that happened with the virus is we had summer concerts since 2012. And we had them all scheduled, and I was trying to get our sponsors lined up for this year, and then the virus hit, and so we canceled everything. Mm-hmm. And at some point in early June, I think it was, we got approval. If I could make sure we could keep them safe, then we got approval from the city of LaSalle to start holding our concerts. So we scrambled, and
before you go any further, I'm going to interrupt you and I would like you to share what you shared with me, what you did prior to coming to the mansion, and why your brain worked a little better than mine would in doing that.
Well, I told Don that I had done Red Cross disaster response coverage all over the country for 30 years. And so if there's one thing I can do, it's handle lines of people en masse and keep everybody safe and orderly. So, but what we did, my staff literally were running around in circles in the yard. We measured out 8-foot circles and drew white paint 8-foot circles around, and there's 6 foot in between the circles. So when people come to the gate, come in, they get there's the circles. Mm-hmm. When you're in your circle, you can take off your mask. People bring in chairs and their own coolers. We have Pizzini's Pizza available out on the street if people want to go and order that. But there you can see a great idea of how spread out people are, and it's just a great time. Well, so when they come in, we pay, it's $5 a person, and they have some hand sanitizer there. You'd have a squirt of hand sanitizer if you're so inclined. And then we have a volunteer who takes contact information. And the contact information is if by some chance somebody ends up being COVID positive and they have to do tracing, right. We take names, phone numbers, and I really like to have emails so we could just send out a blast email saying, this was the date you were here, just FYI, follow CDC guidelines. Because we're outside, because everybody's wearing masks whenever they're in close proximity to anybody else, and we have everything distanced. I think we're as safe as we can possibly, get people out there. People have commented how nice it is, how safe everybody feels. Our first concert, we had 200 people there, and had no problem. The one thing I asked them is to remind people about the mask, because you forget. Sure. you get up to go do something, and this one poor guy, he said he was so paranoid by the end of the concert because his circle kept telling him, don't forget your mask, don't forget your mask. So but everybody has commented on how nice it is, and it's just nice for people to be able to come out and relax and enjoy themselves and not have to worry.
And the fact it's outside, and the fact that you require masks and stick to it, because I find it. I'm a mask wearer. I've been in training for this my whole life because I'm a little bit of a germaphobe. But you know, if a store has a sign that clearly says masks are required to shop here, I just assume everybody in there is going to be wearing a mask. But then you run into these people that aren't, and I know in this day and age it's dicey for the employees to ask them. But you said something to me, this is maybe a week ago when we were talking about this, and I've seen this online more than once, that okay, as an individual you have the right to decide not excuse me, not to wear a mask, but as a independent privately owned business, or you know, private property, you also have the right to say you may not come onto this property if you're not wearing a mask. So it goes both ways, and I think it's great that you've laid it all out there. um, and you've received very little pushback, you told me, which is great. And so when they leave their circle, like to go to the pizza place on the street there, they put their mask on and keep everybody safe. I'm looking through this other stuff here. Maintain the distance and no more than 10 to a group, right?
Right. That was part of the agreement with the cities that if you're meeting other people, you have to have less than 10, otherwise you take up the next adjoining circle and just, you know.
That's fair. And I like here that on your stuff, patience will be required. I think we're all used to being patient. Hey, for $5 a person for a great concert, and we haven't even talked about who plays, but you open the grounds at 6, is that correct?
Correct.
And then the bands play from
6:30 to 8. We cut back our time a little bit. It's a little bit for a selfish reason and also a cost-effective reason and also reality. We only have one porta potty, and because with all of the bars open and everybody having outdoor things, everybody's rented all the porta potties. So when we found out that we were going to be able to do concerts, we went to order our porta potties and our washing stations, and we got one of each. So, you know, for women, we're used to lines. Men, it was a little bit of a wakening up kind of thing that, yeah, there actually is a line waiting for the bathroom. So it hasn't been a big problem, but one of the reasons that we shorted it, the time down from 5:30 to 6, and then, you know, the band stops about 8:15, is to hopefully people won't need the facilities quite as much.
I hadn't even thought of that. I mean, what a jackpot bonanza business that would be to be in right now. Not that I'd want it, but wow, I hadn't thought about that part. All right, so, and you bring your own excuse me, you're allowed to bring food and
You
drink.
bring your own coolers, you bring your own chairs and blankets.
Right. And you do allow alcohol, so they can bring a bottle of wine or whatever. And no smoking, vaping, candles, and tiki torches. I think that's all wise as well.
And what we're going to start doing, hopefully next week, the city votes on it. We've asked for a raffle license so that we could do some 50/50s. Oh, yeah. And we did it once last year and people liked it, but then that was our very last concert, and it was a hurricane, tsunami, typhoon last concert. So we kind of got washed away. So we're going to try that again. And we're also going to have 2 Pizzazzy picnic party contests. And people can bring their picnic layout, whatever they want to do. Last year we had tablecloths and some crystal goblets and wine and roses, and another one had this amazing spread. And they're going to compete for prizes, and we're going to get some gift baskets from Tangled Roots for prizes and some free concert tickets and things like that. So we're going to do that a couple times during the summer.
Pretty cool. Let's talk about and you can order tickets for this online as well.
No, this is pay
This is at the gate. Okay, and it's only $5. All right. Let's talk about your who's playing at these concerts, because you got a nice variety of total total entertainment, nothing terribly heady, just come on out and have a great evening. Now, I know you're at the mercy of weather, so if it rains a Friday out, you don't make it up the next day. That Friday is just gone. Is that right?
Right, it's washed
Okay.
away.
Right. Because well, not this weekend, last weekend was it that I butt dialed you and I didn't mean to.
Yeah, that was June 26th. Al and Jeannie Brown were in the middle of trying to save their equipment, and my phone kept ringing, and it was you.
And I wasn't even calling. I couldn't believe it. I heard a voice in my pocket. Hello, hello. Cindy answered in the middle of this cloudburst. Well, we had seen Alice that afternoon, and she volunteers at the concerts, and they live just a block away from here. And that storm came up out of nowhere. I mean, that was just like boom. And so I texted Alice's husband Rick, and I said, "Oh my God, is Alice at the mansion?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm going to go over there as soon as it stops raining and make sure everybody's okay." And somehow between all of that, and we had just talked on the phone, your number must have come up, but I accidentally hit it. So all of a sudden I hear in my pocket, "Hello, hello." And I looked and it was Cindy. And I said, "Oh my God, you even answered." And I thought, well, she's probably getting flooded with calls, but she said, "We're okay here. The band was finishing, but equipment got a little wet."
Well, that's one of the problems with our venue, because it's under the trees. It's in the shade. It's beautiful. It's beautiful back there, but it's under the treetops, and we can't see what's coming. I went out a couple of times out on the street to see, and it didn't look bad. The thing that saved us was we got a call from somebody that was over on the west side and saying, "Are you guys still there? You better get dry really quick." And so they gave us a heads up. So from now on, I have spotters on the other side of town that will keep us informed of what might be heading our way.
Good plan. Good. I had a dinner theater for 20 years down in Peoria, and we had so many weather scanners because we had hundreds of people there. And when those would go off, we'd be like, "How bad is it? What's the radar?" We had people all over the place going, "Do we need to stop the show?" Which we did a couple times. All right. So next Saturday or Friday, is that the 17th already?
The 17th, Henry Torpedo Boys.
Henry Torpedo Boys. Tell us about them. They're very popular.
They're really good. They're bluegrass and country and blues, and just they're fun. And people really like them. Double Dave Trio. We didn't have them last year, and so I'm looking forward to them. They're blues and classic rock. They're on the 24th. Momentum is a 60s and 70s music, so that's going to be a good one.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, we got Silver Strings coming up, 3-day weekend. They played last year. They brought in our largest crowd last year.
I remember them being very popular for you.
Yeah, what they brought in last year is past our capacity this year, unless we put people on the gravel road around the lawn. So we'll have to see what happens this year.
They may be willing to do that. I don't know. Depends on how ready we are to get out by then.
Yeah. So, and we got Written Warning, Crossroads, Long Ladder Home, Steve Sharp Band, and Big Uproar. We're going until mid-September. We extended it because we lost some weeks at the beginning of the summer. So hopefully the weather will hold and we'll be able to take it. But all of these are on the website, and each week I put them out on Facebook. We have great sponsors. I was surprised this year. I started going after sponsors for our concerts early in February and March, and then obviously everything fell out. And so then all of a sudden in June, we found out we could have concerts. And so I started calling my list back and hoping that they would answer, because, with the way some businesses were, I didn't know who had succumbed and who was still there. But so many people stepped up, and they did a great job. And it's so neat to have so many people want to be involved with us and link their name to us and us link their name to them. So just a shout out. We had Illinois Valley Hospital, Mays Lumber, Wheatique Wealth Management, Hometown Bank, Hart Tower, Teeman Builders, JB Contracting, Central Bank, Eureka Savings Bank, Appleton, Kaufman, McClintock, Steel, and Barry, which they need a whole banner just for their name, one whole street. LaSalle State Bank, Heartland Bank, A Lifetime of Smiles. And then we had Diamond Brothers Insurance, Autocraft, Peru Federal Savings, John Pohar, Mueller Funeral Homes, and Ankle Credit Union. So we had a long, great list of supporters this year, and we really appreciate that support because this is one of our larger fundraisers when you look at the whole season.
Is that one sponsor per event or two? Or it seemed like a lot of sponsors there.
We have the gold and the silver levels each sponsor a band. So when their band is up, for example, Henry Torpedo Boys, their sponsor is Hometown Bank.
Okay.
So some sponsors chose their band, some just wanted to be assigned, to a band. Mm-hmm. So the week that we promote a certain band, we also promote that sponsor. Oh. And then we have some in-kind sponsors, our media, Starved Rock Media Broadcasting, Stud Still Media, Tangled Roots is a platinum sponsor, and also Starved Rock Country. So they pretty much, as platinum sponsors, are sponsoring the whole series.
Right.
And I think Lifetime of Smiles is also a platinum sponsor. They came in at the top level. So get your teeth done there.
He has great commercials. I know. Well, again, you have it figured out. You figured out how to do these concerts and make money at them, and it is such a kicked back way to go. The place I was working at last summer, there was somebody, and she said, "Oh, I didn't know they did concerts there. Was it?" And so she gathered a bunch of her girlfriends, and they got their wine and their cooler, and they went out and they had a ball. She said, "We're going to make a habit out of it," which I think she did. So I'm glad to see it's back, because I'm just glad to see a safe way for people to, I don't want to get into the whole conversation about right and wrong or whatever, but some of the places that have opened up, they have opened up safely. Some of them, you got to kind of look the other way with the crowds, or they do anyway. But if you want to see some good live entertainment, and you're like me that wants to stay safe and not expose myself to, I will stay home over going someplace where I don't feel like, I don't want to catch this thing. Good.
Well, Lord, I think there's still so many unknowns. This whole thing is still evolving, and what might have been true changes. And obviously I err on the side of caution, because I'd rather take more precautions and be wrong than not take them and be wrong. So
right, I agree. That's wise thinking, because it's like Disney opened up yesterday, and I'm thinking, why, of all the places, I don't care how many safety measures they put into place, I don't need to go to Disney. I'd rather
come to our concerts instead.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. I plan to, because you've got someone here that I really enjoy, and supporting the mansion. It's such a great local thing. I have to tell you, I got in a bit of, I guess, Facebook jail one time. I belong to this group called on Facebook called creepy old places or something like that. And they're not always creepy as like castles, and somebody posts a picture and then people comment. Well, the clear blue, they're like from around the world. The clear blue one popped up of the Hegeler Karras mansion. And people are like, "Oh, that place is creepy. It looks cool. I wonder where this is," because there's no explanation. I said, "This is literally 8 blocks from me, and it's a very cool place. It's called the Hegeler Karras Mansion, and it's open for tours." And somebody asked me a question, and I said, "Oh yeah, and gave them the history that I kind of remembered. And I think the sin I committed was I put your Facebook address on it as well as your website, and I was bounced from the group because you're not allowed to advertise."
Oh.
Like, I was passing along information I thought they wanted, but yeah.
Well, I think because the Addams Family show that was on years ago, their house is also the Second Empire house, like ours, our architecture is, and I think people, they remember the Addams Family and all the hand that walks across the floor and things like this. So,
so Addams Family and the Munsters. I always watched the Addams Family. It was more clever. Yeah. Charles Addams is brilliant. All right, so HegelerCarus.org is the website, and don't forget there's an E after every letter, HegelerCarus. And on Facebook, you can find them at Hegeler Carus on Facebook. The address is facebook.com/Hegeler Carus. It's easy to keep up with what's going on. And again, Cindy, I applaud you for really figuring out the whole concert thing and keeping people safe. And I hope the appropriate amount of people flock to your concerts. And I hope they come just enough that you might have to turn a couple away at the end. But it just looks like you've got that figured out so well. And I appreciate that.
Well, and kudos to the people that do come, because they do follow the rules, and it's a good time for everybody. So.
Which is just nice for everybody. So, but I thank you so much for coming on. Before we go, I want to remind everybody that next week I've got Steve Kinsella coming all the way from California, who is the executive director and artistic director of a theater company in California. And he's an IVCC alumni, which is very cool too. And I believe he did some Stage 212, so spread the word. We're now on YouTube, so I'm sure this will be posted on our Facebook page as well, IVCC Fine Arts, but you can watch all of these interviews over and over, or catch up with them right here on the YouTube channel or on our Facebook page. And watch for some news, because we got something very special coming up at the end of July that's going to involve a lot of performers. There's going to be an audition call coming out here real soon. Watch our Facebook page for that. So again, Cindy, on behalf of all of us in the theater department at IVCC, thank you for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Okay. And thanks to Chad for running the show. We'll see everybody next time. Are we clear?
No. Yep.